if there is no wait list or limitation on funds, what does priority of service look like at the local implementation level?
That
And
is yes, I'm sorry. That's an excellent question, Rob. So it will look the same because priority of service is implemented regardless whether we have a waiting list or not under WIOA. Therefore, we will follow the order that we discussed: veterans within the priority of service group first, individuals who are part of the priority of service group but are not considered veterans, and then veterans and eligible spouses, and then everybody else that meets eligibility for WIOA. So we always follow the same order in terms of who we serve for priority of service. That answers your question, Rob?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, my question is more towards, so we've determined somebody qualifies for priority service, but how does that service different between a regular eligible person and somebody that has priority of service? If there's no wait or anything else, what differentiates the actual service they get?
Well, it means that if you have two persons waiting for services, right, you should provide services to the one that is within that priority of service. But if after you're serving everybody that is in your priority of service because you have enough funds, then you move into the individuals that are outside of priority of service but still meet your eligibility. So basically, you should, if you have two persons waiting, right, to receive services, then you should serve that person that is within that group first, and immediately following that person, because you don't have anyone else waiting, then you move to the next one.
Okay. All right. And so if we have nobody else waiting,
Then
or if we have two people at the same time and we have two staff that can work with them, there's no difference in what it would look like.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right.
okay, there was another question from Diane Jackson that I read in TCSG questions and answers that someone that receives other type of public assistance, such as Medicaid, would meet the low income. Is that correct?
If you read that on our regulations, then that is correct. And I see Brittany, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say the line that's in the policy that Diane is referring to, it says state or local income-based public assistance. As you guys are aware, SNAP, TANF, and then SSI are the ones we see the most, which is why they were explicitly listed in this training. But yes, if there are other state or local income-based public assistance programs that someone is participating in, they would still meet the definition of low income for our purposes.
Okay. Frankie Placid, I apologize if I mispronounced that, asks, what is the maximum age to be considered a foster child?
That is a good question, and we will have to look at the regulation and add that to our Q&A, Robin, because I don't have that age range in on the top of my head right now.
Okay.
But we will address that after the training.
Okay, and I'm keeping a record of the questions, so yes, we can post that along with the other materials within a week. All right, Zelma Jones asks, regarding the education requirement, will an individual who has a modified high school diploma, such as a special educational diploma, qualify for services?
So the person with a the special ed diploma is not considered a regular high school diploma. Therefore, that person will be considered basic skills deficient. And if that person meets the basic adult eligibility requirements, then it will also, after that is determined, right? And we move on into determining priority of service, and that person will be considered basic skills deficient.
All right, Lisa Ross says, piggybacking on that question regarding foster care, what documentation is required?
there is a number of documents that you can utilize to validate foster care status. Um, I'm gonna mention a few of those, but then we're gonna add a week that we created on data validation that has an attachment that has foster care. It's like a checklist and the list of documents that you can use. We will send that with this training, but you can have a letter from the agency, a letter from the school. You can have a letter from the foster care family, right? All of that can document foster care. If for whatever reason there's an extraordinary circumstance and no specific documentation can be gathered outside of the participant, you can use self-attestation with a nice case note that document the particular circumstances that prohibited you from obtaining the data validation sourcing or information or documentation.
Okay. I do not see any other questions. If anybody would like to raise their hand or turn on your mic or unmute yourself. Yeah. All right, Lisa, if you, let's see, want to unmute.
Yeah, just regarding the foster care situation, when we have a parent that's been incarcerated and they don't have the time to get to the courts and get the required documents, what are y'all substituting for emergency placement for a child?
So you're asking what kind of documentation you can use in order to validate the foster care status of the youth of the, is that your question, when their parents are away, for example, incarcerated?
Yes.
Yes, then in that circumstance, if you can get validation from the parents or from the social service agency, etc., then you can use self-attestation. But this is the rule with self-attestation per ETA, right? Self-attestation should be used as a last resort. However, it should never be a barrier for that youth to receive services. So in that case, you will explain, we attempted to get the documentation from the parents. Parents are incarcerated at this time, or whatever the reason is that you can't get it, and type that in your notes, and then use the self-attestation from their actual youth participant. And a complete self-attestation is for that participant to self-attest to, being in foster care. That could be checking the box in your application, signing and dating that application. But because you're using self-attestation and this is needed for eligibility, we need you to also add a note explaining why you utilize self-attestation. That helps?
You said thank you.
You're welcome.